You know, even if you're just getting into airsoft, I'm sure you've noticed by now that all airsoft guns have an orange tip permanently affixed to the barrel. This is actually required by law when we sell you the gun. A lot of kids like to take the guns home and paint over it, and we get a lot of questions as to whether or not they should paint over the orange tips on the gun. So this week we're going to get into that in a little more depth and talk about whether or not you should paint over the orange safety tip on your airsoft gun. You may not know this, but all airsoft guns are required by federal law to have an orange tip permanently affixed to the barrel, and that goes pretty much from the moment that it's imported into this country until it is actually sold at the airsoft store. You know, I was reading in one of our catalogs from our manufacturers that if you alter or remove the orange tip from the gun, the warranty on the gun will be void. I find that a little ironic that when you look at the catalog for the guns, none of the guns are actually shown to have the orange tips on it, which is a little weird. In fact, if you look at the packaging for most guns, they don't have the orange tips on them either. The tips are actually there to protect you from somebody mistaking the gun for an actual firearm, so in that sense, they're pretty important. There's also some laws in some cities where you have to leave the orange tip affixed to the gun or you can be prosecuted for it. So a little common sense is necessary to go out and find out what are the local laws in your area as to whether or not you can paint over the tip. Obviously, if you're in a more rural area or out in the country, you're probably not going to have as many laws versus if you're in the city and there's more people, they're probably going to want to leave that orange tip on there. But it's a good idea to look into it either way.
Any adult going out of the house with this needs to be ready for trouble.
I think it's a fair statement to say that there are a few people out there, either in government or power, that do not want you to own airsoft guns, no matter what. And there's nothing you'll be able to say or do to ever convince them otherwise. That aside, I would say it's my personal recommendation that you leave the orange tip on the gun. That way, if you're ever doing something that might be inappropriate with a real firearm, like say running through your backyard chasing your best friend while you're shooting at him with an airsoft gun, people can at least visibly see that this is not a real gun, and you'll at least be less likely to be mistaken for doing something illegal. You know, I think it's necessary that we take a certain amount of responsibility that these do look like real firearms. So I think it's necessary to take a certain amount of precaution to make sure that people that are out there don't mistake you for carrying an actual firearm, so they don't go out and take pot shots at you thinking that they're shooting at bad guys. So what are some of the things that you can do, even if the tip of your gun is painted over, to keep people from misunderstanding that you've got an airsoft gun? Well, one of the first things you can do is just get one of these orange safety caps and pop that on the barrel, so that when you're in public with the gun, at least people have this to let them know that this is not an actual gun.
What?
This is an airsoft store, so obviously we deal with these things all day long. So it's not like you're going to freak me out if you walk in here with an exposed airsoft gun. But the problem is occasionally there's going to be a little blue-haired old lady that might be in here shopping for bicycles or ice skates for her grandkids, and they'll see a kid come through the door with an assault rifle and scare the living crap out of her. So what you may want to consider getting is one of these nice soft gun cases that are available for either pistols or rifles. You can at least get through the door and make sure that everybody's comfortable with the fact that you have an airsoft gun, so you can ask whatever questions and get onto whatever business you have without scaring the living crap out of everybody. You know, I think it's funny, there's so many people out there that want to look like they know what they're doing with guns, or they want to look knowledgeable around airsoft guns or firearms, and yet they'll do something stupid like walk into a store with an exposed airsoft gun and wonder why they got to peel everybody off of the ceiling. So if appearances matter to you and you want to look like you know what you're doing, get one of these things. You'll definitely look like you got your act together. If you've got an airsoft gun that already has the barrel painted over, or maybe just the orange paint is worn off and you want to redo it, there are fluorescent spray paints that are available at your local hardware store or Home Depot. One thing I do recommend is to mask it off and hit it with a little bit of white primer before you try to do the orange color. Otherwise, it'll take a million coats of orange to show through over the black paint. So if you're completely mechanically inept and you have no idea how to spray paint something, feel free to bring it in here to the store. We'll be glad to put the orange tip back on it and keep you out of trouble. There's people out there that would say, you know, if it's legal and it's not going to get you in trouble, go ahead and paint over the orange tip. But personally, I think it's best to leave that on there just to stay on the safe side. If you have any more questions about any of this stuff, feel free to stop in here at the store and we'll do our best to help you out. So until the next time, we'll see you again. You are backlit like crazy.